Hello everyone, and welcome to Geopolitical Trends, where truth matters. Do you wonder what the economic consequences of a war in Lebanon might be? If the ongoing tensions between Hezbollah and Israel escalate into a full-scale war, the consequences for Lebanon's economy will be nothing short of devastating. Already grappling with one of the worst economic crises in its modern history, Lebanon is a fragile state where the impact of another war could push it into further economic collapse and humanitarian disaster. So here I am going to share with you some key takeaways in which the war will exacerbate Lebanese economic situation. Number one, a war-torn infrastructure. Lebanon's infrastructure is already in a very bad shape after years of neglect, corruption, and lack of investment. The war between Hezbollah and Israel in 2006 inflicted severe damage on the country's infrastructure, with bridges, roads, and power plants bombed, requiring years to rebuild. A new war with Israel would likely target the same critical infrastructure, further crippling essential services like electricity, water supply, transportation, and telecommunications. Lebanon's power grid is already unreliable, with frequent blackouts and rationing. Another round of airstrikes from Israel could take down the grid entirely, leaving millions in Lebanon without electricity. And rebuilding such infrastructure would require vast financial resources, which Lebanon simply does not have at this moment. So here's the economic impact of these aspects. The destruction of infrastructure would significantly disrupt economic activity from manufacturing to services, further shrinking Lebanon's already contracting GDP. It will also deter foreign investors and international organizations from providing much needed aid or investments. Number two, further currency depreciation and hyperinflation. Lebanon's currency, the Lebanese pound, has already lost more than 90% of its value since the financial crisis began in 2019. The country is experiencing hyperinflation, with the cost of basic goods and services skyrocketing. Any conflict with Israel will only deepen the currency's decline, as Lebanon's economy would be even more isolated from international trade and financial system. War typically results in increased government spending on both defense and security, which would require the Lebanese government to either print more money or borrow heavily, both of which would fuel inflation even further. With a decimated economy and hyperinflation, the cost of essential goods like food, medicine, and fuel could become ridiculously expensive for most Lebanese citizens. Here is the economic impact of this aspect here. Hyperinflation could worsen, pushing more of the population into poverty. The weakening of the Lebanese pound will also, or imports, far more expensive, exacerbating the shortages of essential goods that Lebanon already faces. Number three, humanitarian crisis and displacements. Lebanon is a home to more than 1.5 million refugees, primarily from Syria, and the country's resources are already stretched thin in providing for these populations. A new war would likely create a fresh wave of displacements within Lebanon, particularly from the southern regions where Hezbollah operates and where Israel is likely to focus its attacks. Civilians fleeing conflict zones will overwhelm already struggling cities and communities. The displacements will also affect economic productivity as people abandon their homes, jobs, and businesses. Additionally, more Lebanese would likely seek to emigrate, further exacerbating the country's ongoing brain drain, where skilled workers and professionals leave in search of stability elsewhere. The economic impact of this aspect is that the humanitarian crisis would worsen, requiring more international aid and increasing Lebanon's dependence on external support. The loss of human capital and productive workforce will hinder any hopes of economic recovery. Number 4, tourism and foreign investments dry up. Lebanon was once known as the Switzerland of the Middle East for its vibrant economy and as a destination for tourists from around the world. However, tourism, a key contributor to the Lebanese economy, has already taken a significant hit due to political instability, economic collapse, and yes, domestic corruption. A war with Israel would almost eliminate any remaining tourism sector. Foreign investments, of course, will also suffer. Lebanon has already been marked by investors as a high-risk environment, and a conflict with Israel will cement its reputation as a country with high instability. Rebuilding the economy requires foreign capital, but no investor is likely to put money into a country embroiled in a destructive war. And the economic impact of this is that the tourism industry will be devastated, cutting one of Lebanon's vital economic sector. Foreign investors, of course, will pull back even further, leaving Lebanon more isolated and reliant on international aid and loans for recovery. Number 5, a deteriorating banking sector. Lebanon's banking sector, once the crown jewel of its economy, has been in a free fall since 2019. The country has defaulted on its sovereign debt, and banks have imposed capital controls, limiting withdrawals and transfers of foreign currency. A war would further destabilize the banking system in Lebanon as people rush to withdraw what little savings they have left, exacerbating the liquidity crisis. Moreover, international sanctions or restrictions on banking due to Hezbollah's involvement in the government could isolate Lebanon further from the global financial system. Even the financial institutions might collapse entirely, leading to an economic disaster from which it would take years, if not decades, to recover. And here is the economic impact of this aspect here. Lebanon's banking system could face total collapse, wiping out savings, destroying access to credit, and halting economic recovery efforts. Without functional banking sector, rebuilding the economy would become nearly impossible. Number 6, international aid and debt relief, a double-edged sword. Lebanon is currently reliant on international aid to provide for basic services and humanitarian needs. The country also needs debt relief from international creditors to help stabilize its finances. A war, however, could complicate these efforts. While some international players might be more kind to Lebanon's plight and offer additional aid, others may withdraw or withhold support due to Hezbollah's involvement in the government. Western countries, particularly the United States and the European Union, the EU, may be reluctant to provide significant financial aid to a country where Hezbollah wields substantial power, especially if Hezbollah is perceived as the aggressor in the conflict. Lebanon could find itself cut off from crucial financial support and left to rely on allies like Iran, whose capacity for assistance is limited due to its own economic sanctions and pressures. The economic impact of this aspect is that Lebanon may be faced reduced international financial support, further isolating its economy and complicating recovery efforts. Any aid that does not arrive may come with conditions that could limit its ability to rebuild effectively. And the last, number 7, agricultural and industrial sector paralyzed. Lebanon's agricultural and industrial sectors are small, but crucial to the country's economy. Southern Lebanon, in particular, is home to many of the country's agricultural activities. A war could destroy farmlands and, yes, disrupt supply chain, making food security an even more pressing concern. Factories already running at reduced capacity due to fuel shortages and economic collapse could be targeted or forced to shut down during the conflict. This would cut off another vital source of domestic production and exports, further eroding Lebanon's economic base. And the economic impact of this aspect is that food security would be severely threatened, potentially leading to famine-like conditions if supply lines are cut off. The collapse of domestic industries will further shrink Lebanon's economy, making it more reliant on import at a time when currency depreciation will make them unaffordable. Here is my conclusion for you, because I like to keep it short. Lebanon is on the brink of total economic collapse, and a war between Hezbollah and Israel would push Lebanon's already devastated economy into a free fall. The consequences would include destroyed infrastructure, hyperinflation, a deepening humanitarian crisis, and of course the collapse of essential industries. International aid and investments critical to any potential recovery will likely dwindle due to the country's association with Hezbollah. Lebanon is a country already teetering on the edge of collapse, and a new conflict will all but ensure that it crosses that line, leading to a prolonged period of economic and social chaos from which it will take years, if not decades, to recover. If you like this video, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. As always, remember, geopolitics impacts your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time, thank you.